The National Football League has always been a battlefield, a gladiator arena where only the strongest survive. But throughout history, there have been certain players who took violence to another level. Men who did not just play the game, they weaponized it. They turned every snap into a declaration of war. Opponents did not just lose against them. They left the field broken, bleeding, and forever changed. What you are about to witness is not a celebration of talent alone. This is a journey into the darkest corners of professional football, where fear was a strategy, where pain was a currency, and where 10 men became living nightmares that still haunt the dreams of those who faced them. Some of these names might shock you. Others will confirm what you already suspected. But the number one spot belongs to a man so terrifying, so utterly ruthless, that even his own teammates were afraid to look him in the eyes. Let us begin. Number 10. The year was 1988. A young wide receiver lined up against the San Francisco defense, completely unaware that his career was about to change forever. On the opposite side stood a man with dead eyes and zero remorse. Bill Romanowski. Romanowski did not just hit opponents, he tried to end them. Throughout his 16-year career, he accumulated over 1,000 tackles and a reputation that made grown men reconsider their profession. But statistics never told his real story. He once spit in the face of a receiver after a play. He kicked opponents while they lay helpless on the ground. In practice, he became so unhinged that he broke his own teammate's eye socket with a single punch, ending that player's career permanently. Romanowski played every snap like it was personal revenge. He consumed supplements that pushed his body beyond human limits. He studied opponents not to outplay them, but to discover their weaknesses and exploit them with surgical cruelty. 4 Super Bowl rings sit in his collection, but his legacy is written in the medical reports of every player unfortunate enough to cross his path. Number 9. Before Romanowski, there was a man Sports Illustrated officially labeled the dirtiest player in professional football. Conrad Dobler played offensive line for the Cardinals, Saints, and Bills during the 1970s, and he turned blocking into an art form of brutality. Dobler did not follow rules, he created his own. Biting, twisting, eye gouging, and punching became his signature moves. Defensive linemen would line up against him, knowing that the next 3 hours would be survival, not football. What made Dobler truly terrifying was his intelligence. He understood exactly where referees were looking, and precisely when to unleash his attacks. Opponents would scream at officials, pointing at bite marks and scratches, only to watch Dobler smile innocently. He embraced his villain status completely. He appeared on talk shows bragging about his methods. He wrote a book detailing his techniques. While other players sought respect, Conrad Dobler sought fear, and he found it in abundance. Number 8. Some players intimidated with size, others with speed. But John Randle chose a different weapon entirely: psychological destruction. Standing at only 6 feet 1 inch, Randle was undersized for a defensive tackle. Teams overlooked him so completely that he went undrafted in 1990. That rejection created a monster. Randle would study opponents for hours. He memorized their children's names, their home addresses, their deepest insecurities. Then, at the line of scrimmage, he would whisper those details into their ears. Imagine preparing to block a man who just described exactly where your family lives. But the mind games were merely the appetizer. Randle's physical violence was equally legendary. He recorded over 130 career sacks, demolishing offensive linemen with a relentless motor that never stopped. His eyes would widen before each snap, giving him a deranged appearance that became his trademark. 7 Pro Bowl selections proved his dominance, but the offensive linemen who faced him remember something statistics could never capture: pure, calculated terror. Number 7. November 20th, 1960, a date that lives in football infamy. Frank Gifford, the golden boy of the New York Giants, caught a routine pass over the middle. What happened next stopped a nation. Chuck Bednarik launched himself like a missile. The collision was so violent that Gifford was unconscious before he touched the ground. The ball flew 10 yards in the opposite direction. Gifford would not play football again for 18 months. Many wondered if he would ever walk normally again. Bednarik stood over the motionless body, celebrating. That image became the defining photograph of football's violent era. Critics called it classless. Bednarik called it football. He remains the last true 60-minute man in NFL history, playing both offensive and defensive snaps in an era when specialization was already standard. His hits were so devastating that teammates called him Concrete Charlie, not because he was immovable, but because colliding with him felt like running into a building. 8 Pro Bowl selections, 2 NFL championships, and a legacy of violence that established the standard for linebacker brutality for generations. Number 6. What would you sacrifice for a championship? Your health? Your fortune? How about a piece of your own body? Ronnie Lott faced this exact decision in 1985. His pinky finger was mangled beyond repair. Doctors offered 2 options: season-ending surgery with months of recovery or amputation. Lott did not hesitate. He told the doctors to remove his fingertip completely. He would not miss a single game. That moment revealed everything about Lott's approach to football. Pain was merely information, and he chose to ignore it. As a safety for the San Francisco 49ers, Lott delivered hits that receivers still discuss in therapy. Running backs would lower their shoulders and aim for the sidelines rather than face him across the middle. His 4 Super Bowl championships were built on a foundation of absolute physical dominance. Opposing coaches would design entire game plans around avoiding his area of the field. Quarterbacks would check his position before every snap. In an era of legendary hitters, Ronnie Lott stood alone at the summit. He sacrificed his finger for football, and he would have given more if the game demanded it. Number 5. When Ray Lewis walked into a stadium, the energy transformed immediately. Opponents could feel his presence before they saw him. His pre-game ritual became legendary. That dance, those screams, the wild eyes of a man possessed by competition itself. For 17 seasons, Lewis patrolled the middle of the Baltimore Ravens defense like a predator guarding his territory. His combination of speed, intelligence, and raw hitting power created matchup nightmares that offensive coordinators never solved. 2 Super Bowl victories, 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, 13 Pro Bowl selections. The numbers tell a story of sustained excellence that few have ever matched. But statistics cannot capture the sound of his hits. They cannot measure the fear he generated simply by standing at the line of scrimmage. Running backs would watch film of Lewis and seriously question their career choices. His leadership was equally intense. Teammates described him as part warrior, part preacher. He demanded excellence and punished anything less with verbal assaults that cut deeper than any physical blow. When Lewis finally retired, the NFL lost something irreplaceable. It lost the last linebacker who could genuinely terrify an entire offense just by stepping onto the field. Number 4. There is a reason the blindside block became illegal. There is a reason quarterbacks started sliding. There is a reason left tackles became the second highest paid players on the field. That reason has a name: Lawrence Taylor. Before Taylor arrived in 1981, linebackers played defense. After Taylor, they became offensive weapons in reverse. He did not react to plays, he destroyed them before they developed. Joe Theismann learned this in the most horrifying way possible. On November 18, 1985, Taylor tackled the Washington quarterback with such force that Theismann's legs snapped in 2 places. The injury was so graphic that networks hesitated to show replays. Theismann never played again. Taylor recorded over 130 career sacks, but that number vastly understates his impact. Offensive coordinators would assign 2 blockers to him and still watch helplessly as he wrecked their game plans. He changed assignments at the line, sometimes rushing, sometimes dropping into coverage, keeping offenses in constant confusion. 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, 10 Pro Bowl selections, 2 Super Bowl championships, and a legacy that fundamentally transformed how football is played.
Every dominant pass rusher who followed owes their blueprint to Lawrence Taylor. He did not just play the position, he invented it.
Number 3. Some players are violent on Sundays. Dick Butkus was violent every moment he drew breath. Growing up in Chicago, Butkus decided at age 9 that he would become a professional football player. He spent the next decade preparing for war. When he finally arrived in the NFL in 1965, opponents quickly realized they had never faced anything like him. Butkus played middle linebacker with homicidal intensity. He would bite opponents during dial-ups. He would twist ankles after whistles. He would deliver forearm shivers that left receivers questioning their life decisions. His pregame routine was terrifying in its simplicity. He would sit alone, building rage, convincing himself that the opposing team had personally wronged him. By kickoff, he was ready to commit violence. Running backs described hitting the line against Butkus as running into a car accident. His tackles were not techniques, they were explosions. 8 consecutive Pro Bowl selections proved his dominance. Being named to the NFL's 75th anniversary team confirmed his legend. Butkus once said he wanted opponents to require a year of rehabilitation after facing him. Watching his highlights suggests he frequently achieved that goal. His career ended prematurely due to knee injuries, but in those 9 seasons, Dick Butkus established a standard of linebacker violence that became the measuring stick for every player who followed. Number 2. Lyle Alzado entered the NFL in 1971 with something to prove. As a small college prospect from tiny Yankton College, he was overlooked by every scout who valued pedigree over production. That disrespect fueled a career built entirely on rage. Alzado did not play football, he waged war. His eyes would glaze over before games, entering a mental state that teammates described as genuine insanity. He would hyperventilate until his face turned red. He would slam his head against lockers until blood ran down his forehead. Then he would step onto the field and destroy everything in his path. His tenure with the Raiders perfectly matched the team's outlaw mentality. In 1983, he helped deliver a Super Bowl championship through sheer intimidation. Opponents would study film of Alzado and schedule extra therapy sessions for the week. Off the field, he was equally intense. He pursued acting roles with the same aggression he brought to football. He admitted to extensive steroid use, blaming the substances for both his success and eventual decline. Alzado passed away in 1992 at just 43 years old. His legacy remains complicated. He embodied the dangerous intersection of performance enhancement and football violence. But on the field, in his prime, few humans have ever been more terrifying. Number 1. There is brutal, there is vicious, there is terrifying, and then, existing in a category entirely alone, there is Jack Lambert. When Lambert arrived in Pittsburgh as a second-round pick in 1974, teammates did not know what to make of him. He was tall but thin, almost gaunt. His weight barely reached 215 pounds. Middle linebackers were supposed to be thick and immovable. Lambert was something else entirely. His missing 4 front teeth gave him the appearance of a Halloween decoration. His eyes carried a vacancy that suggested violence was not a choice but a requirement. During his first training camp, veteran teammates tested the rookie with hard hits during practice. They only tested him once. Lambert did not just hit ball carriers, he tried to separate their souls from their bodies. His tackles were not athletic maneuvers, they were assault and battery with a football alibi. Running backs who crossed his territory did not just get stopped, they got punished. The Pittsburgh Steelers dynasty of the 1970s is remembered for many things: the Steel Curtain defense, 4 Super Bowl championships, a collection of Hall of Fame talent that may never be matched. But at the center of everything stood Lambert. He called defensive signals, he made adjustments, he set the tone, and when opponents crossed the line of scrimmage, he delivered justice with extreme prejudice. 9 consecutive Pro Bowl selections tell part of the story. 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards tell more. But the complete picture requires understanding what opponents felt when they saw Lambert across the line. Fear. Pure, primal fear. Quarterbacks would check Lambert's position before every snap, knowing that any mistake might result in career-threatening contact. Running backs would bounce outside rather than test his territory. Receivers would hear footsteps even when Lambert was nowhere near. He transformed intimidation into an art form. His pregame stares became legendary. His post-whistle warnings became psychological warfare.
He did not merely enforce his will on Sunday afternoons, he imposed it permanently on everyone who faced him. In the 1976 Pro Bowl, a kicker named Cliff Branch returned an interception and was celebrating near the end zone. Lambert sprinted across the entire field and delivered a hit so violent that it created new rules about protecting defenseless players. That was Jack Lambert. Rules existed until he decided they did not. His career ended after 11 seasons, his body finally surrendering to the accumulated damage of over a decade of warfare. 4 Super Bowl rings, countless broken opponents, and a reputation that still resonates nearly 40 years after his final snap. When we discuss brutal players, we discuss degrees of violence. When we discuss Jack Lambert, we discuss the absolute ceiling of controlled aggression ever witnessed on a football field. He was not just the most brutal player in NFL history, he was brutality personified. There you have it, 10 men who turned a game into a gladiator arena. 10 men who understood that football is not just about scoring points, it is about breaking spirits. If this journey into football's darkest corners moved you, show some love by hitting that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling us which of these legendary warriors you would have least wanted to face on a Sunday afternoon. And remember, the next time you watch a modern NFL game and complain about soft penalties and player safety rules, there was a time when men like these roamed the field freely. Be grateful you were not an opponent. Be grateful you were just a spectator.